All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be talking about Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov.
Oh, Dostoyevsky,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, we've
Well,
got the
yeah,
novel itself, obviously, and then some critical essays that you had mentioned you wanted to
mhm,
look at. And
yeah.
it's a story that's full of family drama,
Oh, yeah.
moral questions, things that we're still asking ourselves in
Right.
2025,
Yeah,
and characters who are just so complex. I mean, they practically leap off the page.
it's more than just a story, though.
Right.
The Brothers Karamazov is like a philosophical labyrinth.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky throws you right in the heart of human struggles like faith and doubt,
Yeah.
guilt, the possibility of redemption, all of that.
And I think that's what makes this deep dive so important.
Right.
Dostoevsky isn't trying to give us easy answers. He's making us wrestle with these questions
Yeah.
that people have been asking for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe by looking at these characters, we can
Wow.
learn something about ourselves too.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with the Karamazov family themselves.
Okay.
We've got the father, Fyodor Pavlovich.
Right.
Kind of a terrible guy, honestly.
Yeah, he's not a great guy.
Abandoned his three sons, Dmitri,
Right.
Ivan, and Alyosha.
Right.
It's like Dostoevsky is setting us up for this dysfunction.
That's setting the stage.
Yeah, right from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And each son is like a totally different response to that broken family.
Yeah, and each son represents
Right.
like a completely different response to that broken family dynamic.
Exactly.
So you have Dmitri, the oldest. He's impulsive, passionate,
Yeah.
kind of ruled by his desires.
Yeah.
And he's constantly butting heads with his father, especially when it comes to money.
Right.
And this woman, Grushenka.
Right, Gushenka,
Yeah.
she's almost like this symbol of the conflict between
Yeah.
Dmitri and his father.
Totally.
Like this desire for her.
Yeah, consumes Dmitri.
Yes.
It drives a lot of the tension in the story.
And it's like Dostoevsky is exploring that darker side of human nature, like the way that we can get so
Right.
caught up in our own
And
desires.
yeah.
And then you have Ivan, the middle brother.
Right, the intellectual.
Yeah.
The one who rejects faith.
Yeah.
And grapples with like what that means for morality.
And that line, if God does not exist, everything is lawful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chills down my spine.
It cuts to the core of his struggle.
Yeah. I mean, in a world without a higher power,
Right.
what's stopping anyone from doing whatever they want? I mean, it's bleak, but it's something that people think about even today.
Absolutely. Ivan's wrestling with these existential questions
Yeah.
about meaning and purpose in a world that may be inherently meaningless.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's Alyosha. He's the youngest,
Yeah.
a novice monk. He's deeply spiritual and
Yeah.
in many ways the moral compass
Right.
of the story.
It's like compassion,
Right.
empathy,
Yeah.
the potential for goodness, even in like a really dark, in a world full of darkness.
World. And it's like Dostoevsky is giving us these three brothers as examples of
Yeah.
different ways of
Different ways of being in the world.
being in the world.
Yeah.
Like Dmitri, driven by passion.
Yep.
Ivan wrestling with doubt,
Right.
nihilism, and then Alyosha striving for something higher.
Right.
Which one do you think you...
That's the brilliance of Dostoevsky.
Right.
He doesn't give you these easy answers.
Yeah.
He forces us to confront
Yeah.
these questions ourselves.
Work ourselves.
And then, boom,
Yeah.
just when you think you're starting to understand these characters,
Yeah.
the father, Fyodor Pavlovich,
Right.
is murdered.
Murdered.
It's a complete shock.
Yeah.
And it throws the entire story into chaos.
And of course, like, suspicion immediately falls on Dmitri.
Yeah, I mean, right.
Given their history, his temper, the
Yeah.
rivalry over Grushenka,
The rivalry over Grushenka, it all points to him.
it all seems to point to him.
But Dostoevsky's not writing like a simple whodunit.
Right.
He's more interested in the psychological impact
Yeah.
of this murder.
Right.
How it affects each of the brothers.
So it's not about who did it.
Exactly.
It's about, like,
It's about the psychological.
wow, how they do it.
But this is where the theme of guilt
Right.
becomes really prominent.
Right, yeah.
Dmitri, consumed by his own inner turmoil and his past actions,
Yeah.
actually confesses to the murder, even though he can't remember doing it.
I mean,
He
it makes you question, like, what does guilt even mean?
Yeah, can someone be truly guilty of a crime they don't even remember committing?
And then there's Smerdikov,
Right.
the seemingly insignificant character.
Yeah, Fyodor Pavlovich's illegitimate son.
Yeah, and he ends up playing this much bigger role
Right.
than you would expect.
Much bigger role than anyone expects.
Yeah, and it's like he takes Ivan's ideas.
Smerdikov is fascinating because he takes Ivan's nihilistic ideas about this godless world and twists them to justify his own actions.
So is evil something you're born with?
Yeah.
Or is it your environment?
Is it a product of our environment?
Or your experiences?
Our experiences, our ideas, yeah.
Or your ideas.
Yeah.
It's like Dostoyevsky is suggesting that even the most harmless ideas can have really dangerous consequences when they fall into the wrong hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We left off talking about the murder and like the ripple effects of guilt that spread through the family.
Yeah.
But before we go too far down that road, I'm kind of curious to explore Ivan's philosophy a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it seems like his ideas are kind of at the heart of so much of the conflict.
Yeah, you're right. Ivan's struggle with faith, or the lack of it, is central to understanding the themes of the novel.
Right.
And I think one of the most crucial parts of the brothers Karamazov is Ivan's rebellion chapter.
Yeah.
That's where he really lays out his arguments against God and traditional morality.
Yeah.
He paints this really stark picture of a world filled with suffering, where traditional ideas of justice and fairness just seem totally absent.
Yeah.
Some heavy stuff.
It is, and it's so compelling because he's not just talking about like abstract philosophy. You know, he uses these really harrowing examples.
He brings up these harrowing examples of suffering. Especially like the suffering of children.
Yeah.
To really drive home his point.
It's like he's saying if God is all-powerful and all-loving, then how can he
allow this kind of pain to exist?
Right.
Exactly. And that leads Ivan to his now infamous declaration.
Right.
If God does not exist, everything is lawful.
It's like he's rejecting.
He's essentially rejecting the foundations of faith and questioning the very basis of morality without a higher power to dictate right and wrong.
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line?
It's terrible.
It's a terrifying kind of freedom that he embraces, at least intellectually.
It's a freedom that I think people wrestle with even today.
For sure.
It's like you look around at the world and
when you look at the world around us,
all the injustice.
With all its injustice and suffering.
And you think, is there even any meaning?
It's easy to feel like there's no overarching meaning or purpose.
I wonder if Dostoyevsky was trying to warn us about nihilism.
It's certainly a theme that resonates strongly throughout the novel.
Right.
But it's important to remember that Dostoyevsky doesn't present Ivan's perspective as the only truth.
There's Alyosha.
Right, we have Alyosha, who embodies a completely different way of approaching the world.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to like directly refute Ivan's logic.
Right.
But he represents faith.
Right.
Compassion.
And like active love.
And active love, yeah.
He sees the good.
He sees the potential for goodness even in the darkest situations.
So it's like Dostoyevsky's giving us these two paths.
Right.
Ivan's rebellion and kind of intellectual despair.
Ivan's path of rebellion and intellectual despair.
And then Alyosha's faith and active love.
Alyosha's path of faith and active love.
Which one would you choose?
Precisely. And what's even more fascinating is that Ivan himself isn't even totally comfortable with the implications.
With where his thinking is going.
Of his own philosophy.
Like his conversations with the devil.
You remember his conversations with the devil?
Yeah.
It's as if Dostoyevsky is externalizing Ivan's internal struggle, like giving shape to his doubts and anxieties.
Those were like some of the most unsettling parts of the book.
Those scenes were definitely some of the most unsettling in the novel.
The devil is like a manifestation.
It's like the devil is a manifestation of Ivan's own cynicism.
Yeah.
His temptation to embrace the darkness.
And what really got me was the devil doesn't even argue with him.
He doesn't argue with him. He agrees with him.
He just agrees with him.
It's brilliant.
It's a brilliant way to show how seductive.
It's a brilliant way for Dostoyevsky to highlight the seductive nature of nihilism.
Yeah.
The devil tempts Ivan not by contradicting him.
Right.
But by validating his darkest thoughts.
And Ivan is so...
And the fact that Ivan is tormented
by these encounters.
Driven to the brink of madness. Suggests that deep down he's not at peace.
Right.
With his own conclusion.
It's like he can't escape his conscience, you know, even though his mind...
Like the part of him that still yearns for meaning and connection, even as his intellect rejects those things.
How does this like philosophical debate actually play out? in Dmitri's trial.
Well, it's important to remember that Dmitri isn't a philosopher like Ivan.
Right. He's not.
He operates on instinct and emotion. Driven by these passions that he often struggles to control.
So even though he might not articulate it.
However, in a way, he embodies the conflict between good and evil that Ivan intellectualizes.
So his actions.
So even though Dmitri might not be able to articulate Ivan's complex arguments, his actions, his choices
are still influenced by these moral.
Are still influenced by the same moral dilemmas. Exactly. And during his trial, despite being falsely accused of his father's murder, Dmitri chooses to accept responsibility for his past sins.
So he's saying
his anger, his violent impulses.
Even though I didn't do this.
It's as if he's seeking redemption through suffering.
I'm guilty of other things.
Right.
I deserve to be punished.
So he's essentially saying, I might not be guilty of this specific crime. But I'm guilty of other things.
Can you even have redemption?
I deserve to be punished.
If you don't admit.
It's a powerful moment.
You've done something wrong.
Because it raises the question, can true redemption come from acknowledging our own capacity for darkness?
Our potential for wrongdoing.
Our potential for wrongdoing.
That's something that Dostoyevsky explores.
It's a theme that Dostoyevsky explores throughout the novel. He seems to be suggesting.
It makes me think of Alyosha.
That we can't truly grow spiritually without confronting our own flaws. The shadow side of our nature.
How his faith is tested by all this.
And in a way, Dmitri's willingness to sacrifice himself for the sins of others makes him a kind of Christ-like figure. That's an interesting interpretation.
He witnesses all this darkness.
And it makes me think about Alyosha and how his faith,
murder, the deceit, the despair,
is tested throughout the story.
But he still manages to.
He witnesses so much darkness. The murder, the deceit, the despair.
Hold on to this belief in humanity.
And yet he somehow manages to maintain his belief.
In
the inherent goodness of humanity.
One of the most moving scenes.
Alyosha's journey is a testament to the power of faith.
For me, it was when Alyosha gathered.
But it's not a simplistic or naive faith.
The boys after Alyosha died.
He experiences doubt. He questions.
And he talked about the importance of memory.
But ultimately, he chooses to embrace love and forgiveness.
Like keeping the love for Alyosha alive.
And it's through his actions, his unwavering compassion.
It's like love never really dies.
That we see the possibility for redemption even in the most challenging circumstances.
Even in the face of death.
One of the most moving scenes in the novel for me is the one where Alyosha gathers the boys together after Alyosha's death. He talks about the importance of memory. Of keeping the love for Alyosha alive in their hearts.
Even Kolya, you know.
It's such a powerful message about the enduring nature of love.
It was so.
And the importance of finding hope, even in the face of death.
Skeptical and rebellious.
And what's striking is that Kolya, the skeptical and rebellious boy, is deeply affected by Alyosha's words.
She used to be really affected by Alyosha.
It suggests that even the most cynical among us can be touched. By genuine compassion and the power of belief.
So even though the brothers Karamazov goes into...
So even though the brothers Karamazov delves into some of the darkest aspects...
These really dark places...
of human nature...
It still has these...
It also offers these glimmers of hope.
Moments of hope,
These moments that remind us... of the potential for goodness and the possibility of transcending. Even the most difficult experiences.
That's why
it's exactly, and I think that's what makes this novel so relevant.
Still so relevant today.
Even in 2025.
We've talked about.
Dostoyevsky grapples with questions that we're still asking ourselves today. Questions about the nature of good and evil.
The psychology and the philosophy.
But the meaning of suffering and the search for redemption.
But there's one more thing I want to touch on.
In a world that often feels chaotic and unjust.
Before we wrap up. And that's the prophetic element. Like Dostoyevsky, in a lot of ways, seems to have predicted some of the big social and political upheavals of the 20th century.
That's a fascinating point.
It's a pretty bold claim.
And it's something we can delve into more in the next part of our deep dive. Dostoyevsky had a keen understanding of human nature. Both its potential for great good and its capacity for self-destruction. And that understanding, unfortunately, proved to be all too accurate. But more on that later.
You mentioned Dostoyevsky's prophetic side before the break. Like, he predicted some of the worst parts of the 20th century. That's That's a bold statement.
Well, not predict exactly. Right. More like the brothers Karamazov has these ideas.
Okay.
And these psychological tendencies that, ended up playing out in a big way later on.
Okay.
Like Dostoevsky really understood the danger of radical ideologies.
Okay.
The power of utopian promises.
Like when Ivan says everything is lawful.
Right. Remember that. Everything is lawful if there's no God.
Yeah. Hard to forget a line like that.
Right.
But I'm still not seeing the connection.
Think about it this way. Ivan's nihilism.
Okay.
His rejection of traditional morality.
Okay.
That's a lot like the thinking that fueled totalitarian regimes.
Oh.
The idea that any action, no matter how awful, can be justified if it serves the grand vision.
Right.
It's a dangerous way to think, and Dostoevsky saw that.
He saw that it could lead to violence.
The violence, the mass suffering, all from that kind of thinking.
So he wasn't predicting specific things.
Right.
But he saw the conditions.
The underlying conditions.
That could cause those things to happen.
Exactly.
That's really insightful.
It makes you wonder.
Makes you wonder if those conditions...
Those same conditions exist today?
Are still around today.
In 2025, are we still vulnerable to these kinds of ideologies?
Yeah, are we?
It's a question worth thinking about.
It's not just the political stuff, though, right?
And it's not just about political ideologies.
Like Dostoevsky also showed...
Dostoevsky also explored the darker side of human nature.
That dark side of human nature.
The capacity for cruelty and violence.
Yeah.
That's within each of us.
Like when Ilusha is tormented by those other kids.
Remember that scene where Ilusha, the young boy...
Oh, man.
...is tormented by the other children?
That was rough.
It's chilling,
Yeah, it's like even kids...
The learning that even children are capable of great evil.
Are capable of doing awful things.
Exactly.
So it's not just dictators or revolutionaries.
It illustrates Dostoevsky's point. The seeds of tyranny aren't just sown by dictators and revolutionaries.
It's in all of us.
They exist within each of us.
Yeah.
In our potential for hatred, selfishness,
the
desire to dominate others.
So are we doomed to just repeat the same mistakes?
So are you saying we're all doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past?
Is there no hope?
Is there no hope for humanity?
For humanity? Dostoevsky doesn't give us easy answers.
Right.
But he does give us Alyosha. Remember Alyosha? He represents compassion.
He represents compassion, empathy, faith. He chooses to see the good in people.
Yeah.
Even when everything seems to point the other way.
Like a beacon of hope.
It's like he's a beacon of hope in a world that often seems defined by despair.
So we have a choice.
Precisely.
To give in to that darkness.
Dostoevsky suggests that we have a choice.
Or choose love.
We can succumb to the darkness, or we can choose love, forgiveness. Faith in the face of adversity.
Even when things are really tough.
That's a powerful message.
Powerful message, yeah.
Especially in our world today.
When you see so much bad news.
Where we're constantly bombarded with news of conflict and suffering.
It's easy to forget.
It's easy to lose sight of the good.
That there's good out there.
And that's why the brothers Karamazov remain so relevant.
It reminds us that the fight between good and evil.
It's a reminder that the battle between good and evil
isn't just something that happens out there.
Is not just something that happens out there in the world.
It's in each of us.
It's a struggle that takes place within each of us.
What's the big takeaway?
So what's the takeaway for our listener?
What should people listening?
What's the message Dostoevsky wants us to carry with us?
Carry with them?
I think he's challenging us to confront the complexities of being human.
Okay.
To see both the darkness and the light.
The darkness and the light.
Within ourselves.
Yeah.
He's reminding us that we have a choice, the power to choose our path.
We have the power to choose.
And he's urging us to never give up on the possibility of love and redemption.
Even when things are bad?
Even in the face of suffering and despair.
Powerful message for any book.
That's a powerful legacy for any novel.
That's what makes the Brothers Karamazov so great.
And it's what makes the Brothers Karamazov a true masterpiece.
It's not just a story.
It's not just a story.
It's a mirror looking into your soul.
It's a mirror reflecting the depths of the human soul.
Yeah. It's a guide for life.
A guide to navigating the complexities of life.
It makes you want to do better.
And ultimately, a call to action.
Yeah.
Dostoevsky compels us to be more aware.
Be more aware, be more compassionate.
More compassionate.
Try to make the world a better place.
And strive for a better world.
Even if it's just your little corner of it.
Even if it's just in our own small corner of it.
Well said. That's a great way to put it.
Well said. I think that beautifully encapsulates the essence of Dostoevsky's work.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the brothers Karamazov.
Absolutely.
We hope you'll keep exploring Dostoyevsky's world.
Yeah.
Keep thinking about his ideas.
Keep wrestling with his ideas.
And see how powerful they still are.
And discover the enduring power of his vision.
And like always.
And as always.
Keep asking the big questions. Keep searching.
Keep asking the big questions.
To the truth. And never stop believing.
Keep searching for truth.
In a better future.
And never stop believing in the possibility of a better future.
We'll see you next time.
Until next time.